to forget that life's a game, but shit, I did it too, no, we all to blame. But it's never been the same since I learned the rules, since I got the tools and I dropped the fools. I saw the snakes and fakes and the hate that they make, the pain that they take, I just pray they awake. We may play the same game, but we do by different rules. Got a few I choose to follow, but my motto is the truth. Through the movement, commandments, solutions to the madness. My motive is decoding life's laws like mathematics. Found the blueprint schematic, showed me flow is automatic. Spit romantic semantics and then get back at it. Gotta have it. That's the first thing I found out. Why drop the clowns out and show
So I'm gonna jump into the second section, which luckily this one's a lot shorter, but I'm gonna have more questions for you, Leo, because we're gonna be talking about, drum roll, Midwest Nice and the validation of mediocrity. One of my favorites. So this is just what we were talking about. This very much goes off the coattails of political correctness, phoniness, meaning insincere sympathy, faked smiles like social smiles, and politeness out of fear. And I thought about this a lot, and for me, the root of this comes from a fear of being exposed, feeling that you'll be judged for your true beliefs, so you adopt a public persona that agrees with everyone. Wanting attention, like wanting to be included in discussion without putting in the work to be credible on the topic, saying, I deserve to be a part of this topic. I'm entitled to be included, rather than it being earned through competence.
Validation seeking.
Exactly. But even with a guise of trying to do something for society, saying like, oh, you're talking about Black Lives Matter? I need to jump in and voice my opinion because I'm entitled to my opinion. Oh, have you done any reading on the topic? Could you name 5 black males that were unarmed and were shot by police?
I saw some headlines.
Yeah, I saw some headlines. I read this great article on Twitter the other day. Okay, have you read this book? No? Have you read this book? Oh, this is a shorter one. Have you read this book? Oh, no, you actually are completely uneducated? But I'm entitled to my opinion.
I got my opinion.
Well, yeah, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. Especially fucking Bob's. They got 2.
Especially Bob's.
Motherfuckers. So this is where I wanted to hear your opinion, Leo, because you have the unique perspective of coming from Ukraine and moving to Madison. What did you think about this idea of a public persona?
Oh, that's where I failed. I had a very blunt public persona. I still do.
Well, you even said when you first moved here, you had to develop a public persona because in Ukraine you didn't need one.
I did. That was the strangest thing is I had to develop just enough of a public persona so that I could get by in the city of Madison. When I'm not working, though, when I'm not at school, when I'm not at a public function, I'm fucking nuts. I do what I want to do. That's the time I'm free. I don't care about how I'm perceived. I don't care about what I'm saying. I don't care about what I'm doing. As long as it's something that I want to do, I want to say, and I feel like that's something that's going to be happening.
But you move to Madison and you get this pushback, which is, stop, you're going to offend someone.
Exactly, all the time. Oh, I offend people all the time. I don't ever intend to offend anybody. People just get offended because they put in their hand that they're, if anything, I think of myself as like Loki. I'm kind of mischievous, but like, damn, people can't take a freaking light joke anymore. It's like, man, wow, you're sexist, you're racist. Oh, you hate green blankets. It's like, what? I don't know. So I have to develop this public persona where like, I like green blankets. They're fine. They're cozy. And then enough people are like getting validated around. They're like, we like green blankets too.
And it becomes this echo chamber where everybody's saying the same thing, and it's like, oh, I don't know if I'm sure about this. Me neither. Oh,
But
it's okay.
I like the green blankets though.
Yeah, but I like green blankets. And then
Cozy.
before you know it, it's just buzzwords. Yeah, green blankets.
Yep.
Oh, did you hear him talking about
Hashtag.
green blankets? Hashtag green blankets are cozy. And before you know it, there's a fucking $1 million ad campaign for green blankets.
So there it is, the illusioned reality.
Yeah, exactly. The illusion reality. So for me, I got disillusioned by moving to Prague. And that's where it's like, you smile at some random fucking Czech motherfucker on the street, And they're going to be very creeped out. They're going to be like, why are you happy for no reason? Like, why are you just flamboyantly displaying that you have something to be happy about in life? That's none of my business. Please stop rubbing it in my face who you are. Like, keep it to yourself. And at first, it was kind of weird for me, but I kind of come from a more traditional household. So after a while, I came to really like it that why would you smile at somebody you don't know? Why would you be smiling for no reason? And then once I started getting like to understand that really, then whenever I could prompt a genuine smile from somebody on the street, it gave me a legitimate emotional response. Like I could feel warmth welling up inside me when I would see somebody smile. And that's the proper response you should have to a smile. You should really feel like it brightens up your life rather than just being something you do out of politeness, a fake smile. Because really, when you look at the psychology of it, there's a difference between a fake smile and an authentic smile. And even though people can't tell consciously, subconsciously they can. And it feels fake when you don't actually mean it. So coming back to Madison, it kind of alienated me. Like it disillusioned me, which in Prague, like, oh my God, when I could get like a man or a woman, a Czech person to smile at me, especially a woman, my God, the joy that it would give you. You felt like you actually achieved something rather than just throwing smiles around like they were spare change or fucking Axe body spray that you're just spraying into the face of somebody you walk by. It retained its original meaning, and it was deep. It actually had some true meaning to it. So that kind of changed my perspective on it. Tyler, do you have anything you want to say on this in terms of like politeness or kind of Midwest nice?
Yeah. Midwest nice is, on the outside, we're going to pretend like we're these bubbly people that, oh, nothing's going to bother us. And then once you really get to know us,
it's all a fucking show.
It's all a show.
Yeah, it's only skin deep. And it's ironic. I don't know. I don't want to bring it back to race, but that's an interesting note that for people in the Midwest, it is literally skin deep. It does not go any further. It's just whatever they think they have to do to be polite, not what they actually think. They generally harbor a lot of prejudice beneath the surface, but they believe that if nobody mentions it, nobody knows.
People are people. We need to have our release. We need to be able to be ourselves. We can't be censored all the time. We have to be able to let go. You cannot control nature.
So, now we're going to move on to, I would say, something that is kind of a hot button topic between you and me, Leo, which is the result of this superficiality, which is the inversion of need and ability, the validation of mediocrity, validating the average rather than the exceptional.
Oh, the victim Olympics.
Exactly. So basically switching obligation and right. Damn it, Leo, you quit taking my fucking punchlines. Seriously, dude. I engineered this to have them at certain times.
I'm stealing. Okay.
Don't fuck with my flow.
All right.
Or things get, well, I guess it's all good. It just gets chaotic. But
Yeah.
yes, the victim Olympics. So basically it's based on this. If you flip need and ability, you are switching obligation and right. So let's look at it like this. If everyone has a right to be included, suddenly everyone else has an obligation to include them, irrespective of whether they care about the purpose of the discussion. So we can talk about the difference between a debate and a discussion. I'm trying to have discussions all day. I refuse to debate you because a debate, everybody has their belief and they want to prove it right. They don't care about their belief changing. Where a discussion, it's open to the floor. We're just discussing it. I'm open to changing my views. That's why I'm discussing it, so that I can learn something. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm trying to put my opinions forward so they can be educated and checked so that I can get better. So, this culminates in the thesis, from each according to his ability to each according to his need. Sounds harmless, right? Leo, what do you think of this? From each according to his ability to each according to his need.
We just talked about Madison, the PC culture, this facade that's getting put on, well, this is the biggest facade that has ever happened in the history of humanity. We can preach humanitarianism as long as we want to. We can preach for the common good. But at the end of the day, you ask yourself, who's common good? Obviously, when you preach for the common good, everybody feels included.
Well, no, it's the good of the people, the good of the party, the people.
The good of the, but what people? Yeah, it's a great subject to preach. It's like, yeah, we're gonna spread the goodwill to all. It's like church. Say if you're Catholic or you're Jewish, it's like, well, we're gonna preach the common good of the Catholics, not the Jews, but we're gonna like preach it under the guise of all.
Well, I was actually going down a different road of bullshit, which is Soviet ideology, which is based on this premise of from each according to his ability to each according to his need, that we have an obligation to take from the most effective people and to give to the least effective people.
And
so
what do you think naturally happens? The most effective people stop being effective. They just do the bare minimum. And when the most effective people start being effective, the whole freaking system collapses because everybody's just doing 50% because that's all they have to do.
And then once it atrophies even more, then not only do people stop competing to be the best, since it's based on need, they start competing to be the worst because that's how they get the most. That's how you get people that have a couple of extra children because they get more compensations for that because they need it. How could you argue with giving it to them? They need it. So next year, if you need it more, you're going to get more. So the competition is no longer for the most exceptional. It's for the worst off. And that's how you get the Victim Olympics. The competition to be the most worthy of pity. Because suddenly, the currency isn't pride anymore. It's pity.
And when the need outweighs the resources that can realistically be provided, that's when the whole thing collapses.
Yeah. It starts to get really bad. Yeah, exactly. That's when it collapses. So, we're running lower on time, so I got to jump to the next section, but I want to read one quote here. The two forces that have fought since the world began, and every religion had known of them, and there had always been a god and always been a devil. Only men had been so mistaken about the shapes of their devil. He was not single and big, but he was many and smutty and small. Oh, gorgeous quote from the Fountainhead. Basically, this idea, everybody wants to imagine the root of all evil being within one man. Oh, it's an evil man, a greedy, egoic man. Really, the biggest danger is in the weak masses that just follow. Whatever they're told, they just follow. To me, that's the real root of evil.
It only takes one man to lead.
Yeah, and once you get a bad one, he can take control very quickly. So that's just basically talking about the idea of participation trophies, like trying to protect kids from adversity and hope that you could protect them, but in all reality, they just become sheltered and actually never learn how to cope. And it puts them in this kind of perpetual stage of arrested development that they never get out of, and they never actually grow up. Any final things on the Victim Olympics, Leo? You seem to have so many opinions on it. You should definitely speak your mind.
I would absolutely like to mention that I started swimming when I was 7 back in
Yeah,
Ukraine.
true. I forgot.
And you'd get an official trophy, a written out document that was signed by your trainer, the people that were running the facility where you were training, because it was community like facilities. It's still post-communism era Ukraine. I was living there in the 90s. But you'd only get awards for first place, second, or third. So say you'd be swimming against 20, 30 other kids, only the top 3 would get a trophy. It would be an actual written document with a bunch of signatures. It was very official looking. I moved to Ukraine. 3 of my stepsisters were participating in swimming.
You moved to the U.S.?
Yeah, I moved to the U.S. Getting confused here. 3 of my stepsisters were participating in swimming. They had these boards that were full of ribbons and pictures, medals.
Oh, to show off.
To show off. so I'd be like, oh wow, you got so many words, because I had like what they were called as grammata, like I think no diploma, I forget exactly, but it was a freaking official document that you got.
Oh, in Ukraine.
In Ukraine.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So I had like maybe 12 of them show off, and I've done swimming for 5 years at that point.
Damn.
And in the whole 5 years, I had maybe like 12 to 15 of those. Most of them were like second and third places. I had maybe 3. I was proud of the 3 where I was first, because I was fucking first. I beat those kids. Well, I look at all these, all my step siblings' boards, and they're filled with ribbons and medals and like pictures of them like standing on the jumping block, smiling next to their friends, totally unrelated to even the competition side of it. It was all just fun. I looked at some of these ribbons. Some of them are like 54th place, 37th place. I'm like, what is that? It's like, oh, it's a participation trophy. I'm like, participation trophy. I was 12 years old.
You get a trophy for getting out of bed?
Yeah, I'm like, wow, what? Like what? No, you're like, it's either first place, second place, third place. Everybody else is just lucky to even be there and breathe the same water.
This goes back to my last point earlier when we were talking that I would be pissed if someone gave me a participation trophy over anything else.
It's like somebody giving you a job for being black.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't you be pissed off? If somebody give me a job for being Ukrainian, I'll be pissed off about that.
Yeah, it's like, really? You're not going to give this to me because I'm good and I can do the job? You're going to give it to me because something I'm not even in control of?
How does it not make kids feel incompetent?
Yeah, it's actually, it hurts their self-esteem.
How does it not raise incompetent people?
And that's the issue that, we're bringing upon this episode.
That's what you get. You get people that think they're all that and talk as if they're all that, but don't have any legitimate competencies. So I want to put all that behind because we're only entering section 3 now. This, in a way, is probably the second longest of the two, but it's the most important. So I want to give it the care it deserves, which is, this is the real drum roll. The vilification of testosterone. Oh my God, I could talk about this for fucking days.
Shit.
Oh shit, we got fucking Big T in the house, motherfucker. That's what we're gonna call you, Tyler. Big T. That's how it's referred to in psychological studies, just T.
I would like T-Mac truck, but
all right, T-Mac.
The big.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh, Tyler's choking me out with the cord for calling him T-Mac. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
We'll talk about this after the show.
Oh, God. Jesus, taking me out to the outside of the slums? Oh, no. Any fucking problems? Or do I? I do want some problems, because I'm coming at you, Madison. This is the one where I know what you would like me to think, the liberal media, and I'm not down, because I'm a scientist. If you tell me something, I'm going to check your facts. And this is one that I checked the facts, and it was not only incorrect, but it offended me personally because I was trying to live by this ideology. But then when I did the research, not only is it incorrect, but it's actually completely backwards and is very harmful to be putting this forward. So without further ado, the vilification of testosterone. So I've established by now that Madison has a tendency to be kind of superficial. And these superficial societies are predisposed to overlook kind of covert action and punish only overt acts because they're easier to see. So we're kind of talking in schools right here. So teachers will punish physical violence, but they will not punish emotional violence because whatever, it's harder to see, it's more covert, it's considered to be less hurtful. Whatever reason, it is not enforced. Punishment is not being heavily enforced on emotional violence. Well, nowadays with identity politics, maybe it is. But certainly, historically, it has not been, while recently physical violence has become a hot-button issue. And what you get when you are cutting down on physical repercussion while allowing emotional freedom, you get the enforcement of psychopathic behavior, which, like, what's a good example of this? Like you're standing next to the lockers and this guy comes up to you and he starts talking shit on your mother. Like, oh, whatever. Let's be honest. There are a lot of things he could say about your mother. He says them all. because he knows that you can't smash his head into the locker or you're going to the principal's office. So he gets all up in your face and he says all of these things with his words that warrant some reaction. But your hands are tied by the rules, which tell you that under no circumstances is any sort of physical altercation acceptable. That very dangerous road to go down, Madison. I hope you know exactly what you're creating. Well, we're going to talk about Columbine, so you get the fucking direction this is going. Leo, do you want to tell your juice box story real quick?
Oh, the juice box story. Absolutely. There I was, a foreign kid in the 9th grade, trying to fit in.
Hanging at the metalheads table.
Naturally. Ended up with all the misfits. It was a round table, by the way. Had about, I don't know, 6 seats, 8 seats, I can't remember exactly. But if you got one of those seats, you were the dude with the seat. And there were other guys that would hang around the table because they were attracted to that particular crowd. But if you didn't get there in time and you didn't claim your seat, you didn't get a seat. So it'd be like first come, first serve. Now and then you'd have to, like, you'd show up there and some of the guys would be like hugging the empty seat. But as soon as you sat down there, you had the seat. So they'd be like, no, that's not for you. You just had to claim it, though.
Yeah, get your butt in the seat.
We had a guy there that he had some mental issues. He was in one of those, like, special programs, whatever. He was picked on a lot by everybody. I was the awkward foreign kid. I was picked on a lot as well. I was picking on Mitch the least. I was literally picking on him the least out of everybody because I was getting picked on. I knew what that was like. There was this moment where I was really feeling myself. I was kind of talking a little bit of shit to Mitch. I guess that was the fuse for him because you are not allowed to express the physical violence. He's had all this, like, held up anger inside him. I happened to be pointing my, like, juice box straw in his direction, just kind of laughing. Thought the juice box was empty, didn't mean to do anything. Squeezed it, and some juice came out right in Mitch's face. Next thing I know, I'm lying flat against the wall. There's blood in my mouth. I'm opening my eyes, trying to figure out where I'm at. Yeah, I got sucker punched. Fucking got sucker punched. What pisses me off the most is that if that kid wanted to fight, all he needed to do is stand up, and we would have fucking fought. Now that sucker punch really pisses me off. But doesn't matter. I was an asshole. Later I find out, this is unheard of in Ukraine. Completely unheard of. Like, somebody gets punched, it's totally ignored. He gets a $100-some ticket, and he has to attend a court date or two. I don't know exactly. On top of it all, they go up to me, and they offer me to press charges. And I'm like, what? I'm like, this dude's already got to pay a $100 ticket. I mean, yeah, I almost got my teeth smashed in. My lip wasn't feeling so good for a couple of weeks. There was a lot of blood. Anyhow, I was an asshole. Like, what the fuck? You're offering me to press charges on this poor kid who's getting a $100. To me back then, that was a lot of money, too. That's what prevented me from starting any kind of physical conflicts in the next few years of high school, is the amount of money. Because I worked for all my money. I did a lot of, physical labor for that, lawn work and stuff. The worst thing about that punishment was the money, but it's like, wow, and you offering me to press it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, on top of this, you knew that you were culpable, that you were the instigator, but if you were in a different mentality, you could have pressed charges and hurt him even more, even though you knew that in many ways you were at fault too.
But I squeezed the juice box.
Yeah.
It was my fault.
Yeah, but welcome to Madison. They don't give a shit.
No.
No. It's only once there's something they have to deal with, then they look deeper into the situation. But until then, they don't really care. So it creates this environment of, yeah, do whatever you need to do. Just do it under the table.
It's almost like giving some people the privilege to behave in this heinous ways and get away with it, while the other people that are more humble, that are more honest, that are responsible, get the worst of it.
Exactly. So, that's exactly. So, continuing, when you create, looking at it from a psychological perspective, when you create this environment, the people who actually start to excel are the ones who are adept at being emotionally manipulative, and they start to master soft power, which we could do a whole episode on soft power, because that, whatever. Oh, you got overt power like status and physicality, but then you got soft power like public opinion, oratory and coercion, use of logical fallacies, all of these kind of dark arts that is manipulating somebody's mind so they do something that you've put in their head, but then they get in trouble because it doesn't look like it came from you.
This is why I'm so glad to know you guys, because we don't have the soft power.
Yeah, we're all about overt power, because that's the thing, man. I want to have an argument. Like, I want somebody to tell me what they think. I don't want them to hide behind a smile and be like, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you don't sound like an asshole. No, you sound like a good guy. I'd like to hang out with you again. Never see him again. Fucking, it's very underhanded. So that's where you get these other issues in school specifically. I mean, more like, I would say like early 2000s when you and I were in school, Ty. Like, well, whatever. Whenever we were all in school, we saw these types of things like over-punishing overtly disruptive behavior. Like, we grew up with this, the over-prescription of ADHD medication to young boys because they're perceived as rowdy. Rambunctious. And they, for the good of the classroom, we need to find something to sedate these boys so they stop being disruptive. Yeah, just pump them full of amphetamines. That's a great idea.
It's like meth.
Straight up. Give them a bunch of meth so that they're just tweaking, and they're, even though they're still sitting there, they're just tweaking to themselves.
No, it is honestly prescription meth.
Well, no, yeah, it's methylphenidate. It's a derivative of methamphetamine. Yeah. It's
for 9-year-old kids.
Yeah, no, got his at a young age. I think he might have been like 5 to 6 when he was diagnosed.
What the fuck?
They put him on methylphenidate. Because that's the thing. He couldn't sit still in class because he's a young boy and wants to be out playing physically because that's how he learns. But no. For these modern classrooms, everybody is equal. We need to sit silently equally.
Dude, in Ukraine, they take you out of the classroom, make you run like 6 laps. They'd literally be like, go run. They probably make you run a couple miles, get you back in the classroom, and you'd be sitting just fine.
Any young boy with ADD has been waiting for a teacher to go tell him to go outside and run some laps. He's like, yeah, thank God, I can't do this at home, please.
I'm not going to speak any names here, but unless a certain teacher back in middle school had told me that the nurse was coming by to a classroom to assess me for ADD or ADHD, I would not have known to modify my behavior so that I wouldn't have produced these behaviors.
Who told you that?
I'm not going to say that.
You can say it off mic. Can you mouth it to me? I don't think I even know who
the
teacher
I don't
is.
think you know who this is.
Okay, anyways, you got a tip that the guards were coming through.
That the guards are coming, so I modified my behavior for that
to avoid
it.
Because that's the thing.
To avoid it. Because you don't want to get in trouble. At that time, you don't know what this is going to
and the research wasn't that good.
The research wasn't that good. So I completely did everything in textbook teacher behavior that is...
How scary was that, dude?
It wasn't...
They were going to program you.
It wasn't so scary. It was more that I just want to do everything in my power so that I'm a normal kid.
But isn't that the exact thing that this Madison environment creates?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so afraid of being seen for who I am. I got to put on this show so that somebody doesn't diagnose me with a disorder.
And that's exactly what I feel like later on in my schooling career didn't help, because I feel like if I would have had the practical practices towards this, it could have been avoided. But because I was so worried about what was going to happen to me,
being seen some way,
I was completely like, oh, I'm normal, don't worry about me.
Yeah, I don't need any help. That's what it is. I don't need any help because I'm normal, because if I'm considered an outcast, people are going to treat me that way rather than being like, Well, that gets into what I'm talking about later, about conformity behaviors and the idea where, well, no, that's the validation of mediocrity. That's you get validated for being normal, but if you're a little bit off or a little bit unique, it's not cool. You need to be returned to the average through drugs. Really makes me sick.
Right.
All right.
Do that shit on your own when you're old enough. You can regulate your own drugs. Then you know how to auto-tune yourself.
Yeah.
But when you don't have a choice,
well, I mean, it's just such problems because I saw really have all these issues with growing up. I mean, because you become addicted to these drugs, growing up addicted to amphetamines, and that once you are prescribed amphetamines at a young age, you need to continue introducing them into your system to be normal because you've affected your brain's development. And now, at an adult age, dude needs ADHD medication permanently now.
Which is one grateful thing for me is because I wasn't diagnosed, I didn't have
Seriously.
these amphetamines injected into
It's
me.
bad. Because, dude, it's during they talk about, oh, man, you should really not smoke weed when your brain is developing. Yeah, just take some methylphenidate. Great. Take a bunch of amphetamines. That's not going to change your
That's gonna do
neurochemistry.
great.
Yeah.
it's prescription. It's
Yeah.
been approved. It's okay.
Yeah, society says it's okay. You're good. You're good. Public opinion's in favor.
It's like, yeah, this is fine. No pot though. No pot.
Yeah, that'll kill you.
It cures too many conditions, and we can't make money.
I mean, reefer madness, bud.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, so we're going to jump to kind of a deeper part of this subsection of the vilification of testosterone, so let's presume that their thesis is actually correct, that physical violence is uncivilized and should be done away with to create a peaceful society. Because that's something I was told a lot, because I studied kind of political science and psychology, so my later years in high school and my early years in college, I came across this modern thesis that is exactly this. And we could talk about it in like kind of a weaker version, which is... the threat of physical consequence produces more violence rather than less, or basically the root of violence is physicality. And as I got more advanced into the university and this kind of hyper-liberal alt-left kind of started to take over the social sciences, I encountered the extreme version of this thesis, which is, if we can eliminate testosterone as a society, we can eliminate war. We can have a perfectly peaceful society as long as we eliminate what we perceive as the root of violence. So I started thinking about this a lot. Could this be true? So let's reformulate this for the purpose of a psychological study. So let's assume higher testosterone would produce a higher predisposition towards physical violence or a higher likelihood of immoral or unfair behavior. That's basically... Well, no, not basically. That is what the thesis is that is put forward in the social sciences at higher levels, that the research is showing that people with high testosterone have a very high likelihood of violence and treat each other very immorally. So I looked into it and tried to see whether the studies support this. Our first study is from Terence Burnham from Harvard University, done in 2007. Our second is from Eisenegger et al. It's a team of psychologists from the University of Zurich, the University of Vienna, and the University of London. That was done in 2009. Now, for these studies, the methodology is the same. It's using a experiment called the Ultimatum game, which relies upon two individuals that have to agree on a division of a sum of money. For example, let's use $50. And in this game, one person proposes how to divide the money, and the second person either accepts or rejects the offer, but they cannot make a counteroffer. So, the person who proposes has the option to propose a fair or an unfair offer. For example, what if I get $30 and you get $20? That's kind of fair. Or what if I get $45 and you get $5? That's considered unfair. Do you guys follow?
Yep.
Yeah, like,
Absolutely.
this is a pretty basic psychological experiment. It's just the methodology of these studies. It's how they measured fairness, basically.
Right.
So, getting into the testosterone aspect. So, if we are using the previously talked about testosterone aggression hypothesis, higher testosterone should lead to people making more unfair proposals because they're more dominant. You would agree? That's consistent with what the prevailing media hypothesis is, correct?
Hypothetically, yes.
Yeah.
You should be a bully with higher testosterone.
Exactly. Exactly. You should become a bully. Ironically, in these studies, it's so funny because they're generally written by like kind of liberal men or women. They're like, contrary to what was expected, motherfuckers. In point of fact, what we actually see from these studies is the exact opposite effect, that higher testosterone leads to more fair proposals rather than less. And they looked at this in different ways. So the Burnham study, they verified this in men. So they did a correlational study. They did a test on the men's testosterone level, and then they correlated it to the likelihood that they proposed a fair offer. And they got a positive correlation, meaning that the men who had the highest testosterone in the group were the most fair. They proposed the most equitable distribution of the money.
Weirdly enough.
Weirdly enough. Huh. You'd think we would trust the liberal media rather than hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. How strange. So on the Eisenegger study, this is the more interesting one of the two, because this study was done in women. So it was not a correlational study, it was a causation study. So what they did is in the Ultimatum game, they divided the groups into two groups of these women. And they gave one of them a placebo and the other one a sublingual dose of testosterone. And what they found is, taking the baseline out of it, the group that took the testosterone produced more fair offers as compared to the group that took the placebo. And they even, I'm not going to go into the depth of the study, but what they did is they tried to make sure that it wasn't a perception. So they asked people, do you think that you got a placebo or a testosterone? And they got this weird kind of, I'm not sure exactly. My understanding of it was that they got kind of a weird effect where the women that thought they had taken testosterone did more unfair proposals, but I didn't read it closely enough. I think that's what it said, but it was something weird and complicated like that.
Felt empowered.
Exactly. But again, that was kind of like a subsection of the study. It wasn't the main thing. So I only want to talk about the simple fact that when they gave these women sublingual testosterone, they produced more, they gave more fair offers in this study. So yeah. Okay, so here's how they interpreted the study. The study concludes high testosterone produces status-seeking behaviors, not, as previously thought, aggression. So here's a quote from the Eisenegger et al. Study from a guy, Michael Naef. In the socially complex human environment, pro-social behaviors, not aggression, secure status. So meaning, higher testosterone produces a desire to seek high status. But in the social context of humans, aggression doesn't get you that. Pro-social behavior that benefits the group is actually what gets you higher status because it benefits everybody. Huh, wouldn't that make sense?
And I have to tie this back to Madison, is status means responsibility. Status is authority. Status is not something that's freely given. Status is something that's earned. Madison tends to be handing out status like it's candy on Halloween.
Hey, free status. Get your free status.
And what do you get? You get people who cannot handle their positions. You get people who cannot run things. You get people who are too confused. You get people who derive status from connections, from the facade that they put on, from the PC culture, from the fact that they're black, gay, woman, whatever. The status is given without validity, and when it's given out freely without validity, it leads to a whole lot of confusion and mismanagement.
Yeah. So my question was...
Not fairness. Not fairness.
Exactly the opposite of fairness. So that led me to ask myself, why? Why is it that I was told my entire life that testosterone is the enemy and that if only our society could be free of it, we could finally be fair? But when you actually look at the studies, like, again, I studied psychology at the university, so I understand that you can't publish a study unless it's very well validated. Because in psychology, it's very hard to get a significant effect. So if something like this is published in a major journal like Nature, yeah, you can't argue with it because they've produced an effect. You have to acknowledge this. So I had to really take a moment and be like, why would this be the case? So I'm going to avoid here going too deep into game theory, but I want to briefly mention there's this, I would say it's a blog called Ribbon Farm by this guy Venkatesh Rao. This particular article is discussing workplace dynamics, and he talks about power talk versus posture talk. I think, Leo, you might have heard me talk about this.
Yeah.
This is just a really quick overview. I could do a whole episode on Venkatesh. He's a very, very intelligent guy, like extremely intelligent.
It's about the deer, right?
No.
No.
Again, stealing my punchlines, Leo.
Jesus.
So power. Okay, basically, we'll skip over this. He's making a differentiation between power talk and posture talk. Power talk, each sentence potentially changes the balance of power between two people, and there are real stakes or high stakes for the conversation. Where posture talk, you have no stakes, no changes in power balance, purpose is momentary feeling of control, not its reality. That's how you get guys that spend all day standing by the water cooler trying to assert their dominance over other people through posture talk, when all of the real decisions are being made through power talk behind closed doors in an office by the executives. So that's kind of a side thing. So let's cut to the studies. So to try to understand why this would be the case, let's look at dominance hierarchies in specifically in lobsters. So at the university, I studied neuroscience and human behavior and animal behavior. And we often use the model organism of lobsters. Model organism, basically just a species for an animal study. And we use lobsters because they're simple but comparable nervous systems. They use the same neurotransmitters, specifically serotonin. And they also, like humans, live in complex social groups. So we use them to study dominance hierarchies or social dynamics. So the finding from these studies is basically this. The position in the dominance hierarchy of a lobster correlates directly to its level of serotonin. So meaning the lobsters that are higher up in the dominance hierarchy have higher brain circulation levels of serotonin. So this is...
Of course, they're less depressed.
Yeah, exactly.
They have more energy. They can do more. They can do lobster things.
Yeah, because as they
side
should.
to side.
Yeah, as they should, because the ones that are higher up in the dominance hierarchy have more responsibility. So how could they be depressed? They need something that keeps them up. So this is relevant kind of for the Columbine episode in serotonin's link to depression, but it's also relevant in again, this is getting into the weeds, but low serotonin is often implicated in reactive aggression. Abnormally low levels of serotonin make it harder for a person, it makes it harder for the prefrontal cortex to inhibit emotional responses. So when you get angry, if you have low serotonin, meaning kind of low social status, you're being picked on, you don't feel confident in yourself, you're more likely to not be able to inhibit an emotional response like anger, and you may lash out. So ironically, it's actually the people less high in the dominance hierarchy that are more dangerous, which brings us to studies in wolves. So in wolf packs, they looked at the incidence of violence in various packs and who initiates the violence. So just bear with me, it's close to the end. Bear with me. Imagine...
Everybody's still alive. Tyler, you're alive?
Yeah, Tyler, you still here?
He's still here?
Somewhat.
We're still here. It's all good.
Okay, so imagine a pack of 10 wolves. Just imagine this is the group. So in this pack, there's going to be one single alpha male, which is generally young to middle-aged, kind of the strongest wolf in the pack, the most vital. Then just below him, you have 3 to 4 beta wolves, kind of young, like very much younger, strong, but maybe inexperienced, but are kind of the up-and-coming next generation. Then you have 4 to 5 low-status wolves that aren't really competent, but they don't really have any competition. They're in the lower of the pack. And then you have the Omega Wolf, which is at the bottom of the pack. This is kind of an aside. But the Omega Wolf is in the lowest position. It's bullied by all of the other wolves. It eats last. It eats less than all of the rest of the wolves. But it's still better off being part of the pack rather than being alone because, I mean, a lone wolf will die. That's just how it is. If you don't have a pack, you have no luck. So if you look at these, if you look at the incidence of violence in these wolf packs, the most violent or the most likely to initiate violence is always the beta wolf or the beta 2 position just below the alpha male, because he gains the most from challenging the other males and his position is the least secure. The alpha male generally has very high serotonin, often the highest testosterone, but not always. Generally, he's quite relaxed. He's secure. He benefits from the stress management properties of high serotonin. These high-status males are more likely to use posturing, the use of body language or nonverbal communication to resolve conflict rather than violence. So let's look at the idea of posturing really quick. In animals, in the animal kingdom, small injuries from a fight can mean death. Like, even if it's kind of a not very violent interaction, even if you get hurt a little bit and you start bleeding, in the animal kingdom, that generally means death. And often one of these interactions can kill both combatants, because even if you get a small injury, you might die. So animals evolve complex posturing behaviors to create a gradient of aggression, so that conflict can be resolved before it escalates to violence. So let's use the example of the red deer.
The catchphrase I stole.
Yeah.
The red deer.
That one. See, look at that. Y'all are sleeping,
It's a
except
great
when
one.
you're stealing my fucking...
Yep. Just,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
Tyler's sleeping.
No, we're going into marathon mode here. Marathon mode.
We're hitting about 2 hours now, so I don't know how
Hey,
you put it.
140.
But
140.
Close
bonus
to 2.
bonus content. It's going down. We're gonna sample some of these shit. Sorry, back to the red deer.
So in red deer, there become these different levels of aggression. So when there's a conflict, generally red deer first engage in deep roars, something auditory to scare the other person off. And then if that doesn't work, they escalate to the next level, which is parallel walking, where they strut side by side to assert relative size so that the smaller male backs off and they don't have to get into actual violence. Then, if that doesn't work, they go into antler locking, which is attacking the antlers of the other deer rather than attacking vital organs. One more opportunity to not escalate.
To relate that to people, that is exactly what people do. I don't want to make this specifically male-oriented. We're just going to talk about the testosterone levels of all humans. But you do anytime you're in public, man, woman, whatever. You assess the level of the other person, how much they can fuck you up. And way before a fight or a conflict is even breaking out, you already know whether you get to get in it. This is how I see this being relative to the higher level of testosterone, where testosterone specifically does fuel an increased ability of somebody to fuck somebody up. It's not always relative to size as much as it is how much of a fight are you going to put up. It could be as much as a facial expression, a look in the eyes.
Which is all posturing.
It's posturing. People do this all the time.
Because you don't want it to escalate. And for these red deer, if it escalates beyond the antler locking, it will be attacks at vital organs. Like, well, Tyler, you're a hunter. You know the best way to kill a deer would be to stab the heart.
Stab the heart, stab the lungs. You want to puncture in the middle of the area.
And that's what antlers are for puncture wounds. So when they stop locking horns, they start aiming for these vital organs, and the fight ends very quickly, generally with one or both parties injured. The conclusion from this study is basically this. In simplicity, higher status males, the ones that are more capable of violence, use more posturing behaviors and are less likely to escalate to violence. Because they do not wish to, it's a lot easier to de-escalate with the posturing behavior and have it be done with. So my conclusion from all of this is that when real stakes are present, there's potential for severe punishment, violence becomes less likely, because posturing behaviors are used to resolve the conflicts and to keep violence-prone individuals insecure about their social position and in check, rather than letting them actually try to gain status and use violence, because generally it's the lower status males that escalate quickly because they have less emotional regulation from the less benefits of serotonin and have less to lose and more to gain. Basically, just bring it all back. Shown from these animal studies, high testosterone or potential for violence creates less incidence of serious violence. Well, however, with the caveat that when violence does occur in high testosterone populations, it's much more intense because, let's be honest, high testosterone can give you the ability to do egregious bodily harm, but it also gives you the understanding that it's not necessary. So to bring it back, my experience with this was starting martial arts, and my realization that the most advanced masters in my art, the ones that I have met, are the most compassionate. The people that are most capable of extreme amounts of violence are generally the most compassionate people you've ever met. They're the least violent people you would ever encounter because they know how much they can do. So the way we talk about it in my martial art is you train the volume knob of your ability to hurt people. Most people generally have only a 1, a 2, and a 9 or a 10. Either you're play fighting or you're breaking somebody's neck. But when you become trained in this, you train that level 3 to 8, where you know just the appropriate response to something to de-escalate it without it being inappropriate, without it being out of sync with the moment. So you learn how to de-escalate rather than trying to show off violence. When you become adept at violence, you do it less because it's never necessary, because you understand that there are real stakes. So it got me kind of thinking about the Eastern culture of Japan and how in this warrior culture, it becomes very honor-based, which very much syncs up with these studies, the use of posturing behavior. The simple thing that from Japan, the social conditions or the social conventions are that you shake hands with your right hand to show that you are not holding your weapon and you do not mean them any harm. Or you walk on the right side of the street so that the katana is on the wrong side for a draw strike, so that if you're just walking on the street, you can't do a single draw and cut them down. So you walk on the right side to show good faith that you have no desire for violence. So this is just all to show good intent. So this kind of got me thinking more about your perspective, Leo, and how you grew up, especially in school, with this understanding.
The gun is not on your hip, but your finger is always on the trigger.
Especially when it's just your hand that's the real...
And it's just your hand. That's all. You ain't got a gun.
Yeah.
Pick your fights.
Yeah. So, Leo, do you want to... We should close this out because Tyler's actually on the floor getting pillows together right now. So, do you want to just talk a little bit about...
I think I want to steal a cigarette off of Tyler, and...
cool.
We want to go outside.
Right on. That sounds good to me. Then in that case, I just want to conclude it like this. Leo, I think on a later episode, I'd like to get your perspective on... We've talked a lot about you growing up in Ukraine and going to school in Ukraine, where there were fights on the playground. Physical violence was a commonplace, and how people became very respectful because there were real stakes. So there's no need to escalate if it's not absolutely necessary. And they do a lot more of these posturing behaviors. Like you could just stand up really close to somebody to make it clear that it's on the table. But in this pussy-whipped Madison, that's not even on the table. So you get these young boys that feel so comfortable disrespecting you to your face, calling you teabag.
This is kind of ridiculous. We would get the entire class that's up against the other class, because you'd stick with your grade for the 8 years that you were in school or whatever.
I think this is probably better for another episode. I want to say goodnight to everybody. I want to do a special thank you to you, Tyler, for sticking it out this whole episode. We knew that I was going to go over. Like I talked about how I had a lot to say on this episode, and I really needed to get it off my chest because I don't ever want to feel stifled. And this is something that's been really on the forefront of my mind because during COVID, people are on the internet all day and they don't really get a lot of validation in their lives. So they really look to social media and social validation to get that. And it leads to a lot of superficial behaviors, which is, from my perspective, the opposite of what we stand for at Nobobsallowed. We don't want that.
I had eggs for breakfast. Check out that selfie of those eggs.
Absolutely. I just wanted to interject here. Next episode, I will be leading, and this kind of ties all into Columbine and how the fact that the media has, at the time, projected it as something that it was not. And I will be going really deep into the psychological aspects of the shooter, not so much the actual events, because if you want to go look up the events itself, by all means, go do that. I'm more curious about the actual psychological mentality of these shooters. And through my research, it is a lot different than what our generation and the generation before that really thought of.
Yeah.
We're going to get back to that testosterone. We're going to back to the
Yeah.
back to the PC culture. We're going to back to Madison.
Yeah, I
Tie
tried
us
to make
all
this
in.
also a good intro to the Columbine episode because I just got so much disdain for Madison. I had to get that out, but I think it was also very relevant to what we're going to be talking about. The idea of like, what was Columbine really? Was it incels? Was it bullying? Or was it something even more complicated?
I guess we'll find out.
Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. It means a lot to me that I can throw these notes away because I spent a lot of time making them, because I really feel strongly on this, because I mean, just specifically this idea of the vilification of testosterone. If testosterone makes you more fair rather than more violent, I need some more of that. I need some masculine dudes to hang out with. I do not want some androgynous motherfuckers that are going to have my back. I don't want to get punched in the head and have my boys stand by like, I think it would be politically incorrect if I stepped in to prevent you from losing your front teeth. So on that note, I just want to thank you guys for being here, and really it just warms my heart that you would allow me to talk this whole episode on something that means something to me like this.
Absolutely, and we will see you all next week.
It's been wonderful. Hope everybody is hanging on to that no bobs allowed type of mentality.